Washington County Board of County Commissioners, now session pursuant to adjournment. Honorable Chairman Greg Manley presiding, remain standing, come to order.
Thank you, Sheriff. The first order of business this evening is to have our prayer led by Commissioner Carriger and our pledge led by Commissioner Ford.
With bow your heads. Heavenly Father, help us grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. To him be the glory, both now and forever. Amen.
Amen.
Let's honor America. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, if we'll go ahead and call the roll. If you'll indicate your presence here this evening on the screen. To be with Commissioner Tester this evening. His grandmother passed away earlier this week. And keep him in our thoughts and prayers. He is out this evening. All right, we do have 12 present, 3 absent. We do have a quorum. Our next item is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion to approve the agenda made by Commissioner McAllister, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald. Discussion? Question? Question's been called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. The motion passes and the agenda is approved. We have no one that has signed up for the public comment this evening. We'll move right on into our public hearing for rezoning. We'll go ahead and open our public hearing for rezoning. The first item on that public hearing is the Mary Brown heirs. In the 12th Civil District, and it will be from R1 Low Density Residential District to the PRD 3 Planned Residential District. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak in opposition to this request? Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak in favor of the request? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and go back into regular session. We will now call on Angie Charles, our planning director. Angie?
Thank you. The rezoning request this evening is located along Gray Station Road near Gray Ruritan Drive. The request is to rezone from R1 to PRD 3. That's the planned residential district. And that's for the purpose of constructing 34 patio homes on the property. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning at their November meeting. And the other item we have under planning this evening is an amendment to our flood damage prevention resolution, also known as Appendix B in the zoning code. And that request is from the state's emergency management agency. And that's really a housekeeping item. And it's to amend and remove 11 maps that do not contain flood hazard areas. And the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend that amendment at their October meeting. Can I answer any questions on either of these items?
Seeing none, thank you, Angie. We appreciate your hard work. All right, also you'll receive the minutes of the planning and zoning meetings for this month. We do have a resolution number 191101 is a resolution rezoning the tax map in the 12th Civil District presently owned by Mary Brown heirs. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Carriger to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Davenport. Discussion? Question's been called. If you'll go ahead and indicate your, or cast your vote on the voting screen. Madam Clerk, well. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote. 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Next resolution is Resolution 191111, is a resolution amending the Washington County, Tennessee Flood Damage Prevention Resolution and the Washington County, Tennessee Zoning Resolution. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Davenport to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner England. Discussion?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. No, we still have 2 voting. Let's wait on those. I'm one of them. I'm trying my best, Mayor. I just replaced my battery not long ago. Yeah, let me, if you will, switch batteries, we'll try that, see how that works. Mr. Ford, I don't know, All right. Either way. Well, I was counted present with it. Now, it'll never vote again. I don't know about that. All right. Okay. All right, Mitch, you work on that a minute. Looks like you're doing better with it than I am, so. Well, that was progress. All right. Let's see, that resolution passed 12 yes, 3 absent, and the resolution passes. And we will be finished with our zoning report. We do have some resolutions this evening and for special certificates to recognize. And our first speaker tonight is Alicia Summers, the Vice President of Business Development for the Northeast Tennessee Regional Economic Partnership. Alicia, always good to hear from you, and always bring us good information, and we appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you, and it's a great day in Washington County, Johnson City today. For those of you that could come out to the crown ribbon cutting ceremony.
I hope that works better than my the other one.
Here's a copy of it in your packets as well. And this pilot report goes through June 30th. There it is. Just a reminder, I know everybody here knows what it's just on.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you all just kind of a quick reminder. We went through this last year earlier this year when we did the pilot report, why we do pilots, when we do them, what body delegates the authority to the industrial development boards. So they're a popular tool. We know they're used for recruitment and retention projects. They're authorized through state statute, and that allows the IDBs to reduce or freeze the taxes for a certain period of time. The IDBs can do that up to 20 years. And they offset the new taxes on improvements on property for the most part, and the addition of personal property. And remember, they're a common practice. And they're usually used to win or close a deal. So then what drives a deal? It varies. Each project is different. Primarily, it's whether we have inventory, whether they're looking for a building or a site. There's always a job creation component, wages, capital investment, and the availability of workforce is a key driver right now, and it's one of the trends in economic development. Remember, we're always competing, 49 states, 94 other counties, and every one of those is offering incentives. If we don't offer, we'll be eliminated. And then how do we evaluate a project? We look at a variety of different factors, whether we even have a building or site that's suitable for the project. We look at the job creation numbers, what those wages look like, the number of jobs. Are they quality jobs? We look at the capital investment, and we also look at whether we have the workforce available to meet their needs. We look at their capital investment, and that's the long-term spending that a company is going to make. We usually look at these over 5-year increments. And then again, each pilot is different, and they're all negotiated on a case-by-case basis. There's no cookie-cutter pilots. So the terms are all different for each, but each pilot has a remedy for non-performance, and they all have reporting requirements. And one other thing I'd like to note on that is that the reports are reviewed by different entities, and tonight we're talking specifically about the Johnson City Industrial Development Board pilots. Those are reviewed by the Industrial Development Board attorney, the county attorney, and this year they were audited. The City Commission called in a third-party auditor. And then a couple of the terms that we use on a regular basis, recruitment, what does that mean? It's when a new industry comes. Those are new jobs and new capital investment to the area. Those are typically brought to us through the Department of Economic and Community Development, or TVA. So retention is keeping an existing industry. So that company for a retention project is typically at risk. So we're looking at ways to help them retain those jobs. Those types of projects are mostly identified locally. And then an expansion, like Crown today that some of you attended. So that's an existing industry that's experiencing growth. So they'll be creating new jobs and investing more capital. And then here's a screen that has the sample performance criteria. So we look at the reporting, when is it due, and what type of report it's going to be, whether that includes job creation or job creation and capital investment. And this is what the Johnson City Industrial Development performance reports look like. It has a place to capture investment and job creation. It also requires backup data for the employees. And then each time we run a pilot report, there's a cost-benefit analysis that's included with the agreement, and those are run by the attorneys. So let's get down to it. So the first one we have up here is LPI. They've filed their second report, so they're in year 2. They projected creating 290 new jobs over 5 years. They've created 157 so far and have had an estimated increase in their payroll of over $5.5 million. Just an update to LPI, you all may have seen in the news in September that they were expanding, so they purchased a building that had been vacated in Johnson City by Cantech earlier this year. And they purchased that building to move their warehousing and inventory over there, and that freed up floor space for them to bring in additional product lines and create more jobs. The next pilot is on Mulliken Flooring. They're again in their second year of reporting. They have a total of 68 new jobs. They projected 200 new over 5 years, so they're in their second year. They've created a total of 16 and have added almost $2 million annually to their payroll. The next one is NN. That deal was terminated in October, so they are out of the building and out of the pilot. And then the last one is the Silverdale project. Silverdale's in their third year, have completed their third year of reporting. They projected 102 new jobs over 5 years. They exceeded that already with 126 new jobs in that project. And that shows an annual increase in payroll of over $6 million. Silverdale also is the only pilot that Johnson City Industrial Development Board has with a capital investment criteria. And their initial their criteria was $6.6 million, and they've invested over $7 million so far. So I just want to say that combined, just these 3 pilots have added more than 350 new jobs over the past 3 years and have added more than $13.5 million in annual payroll to the local economy. One other thing that I wanted to mention was the book of lists that came out this year. I hope some of you had an opportunity to look at that. One of the things that the book of lists tracks is the major manufacturers, and those are ranked by their head count. And 8 of the 39 top companies are Washington County companies, and we've assisted or worked with each one of those 8. And I'm happy to entertain any questions about the pilot report.
Yeah, I don't have anything on the pilot, but I just want to say, I did go to the, this afternoon, to the ribbon cutting at Crown Laboratories. So I just want to publicly thank you for what you do, because I talked to a number of employees there, and what you do, you see new added jobs, but the jobs that stayed here, because I'm sure Crown probably could have gone somewhere else. But thanks to some of the work I know that you've done, those jobs stayed here, and those employees were very happy to be staying here in Washington County, not to have to uproot and leave. So thank you for that, too. I think it needs to be pointed out the jobs we keep, too.
And for those of you that don't know, so Crown, we've been working with Crown for probably about the past 14 or 16 months. We were competing with several different states on that project. They're going to create 200 new jobs and invest about $25 million. So that's like I said, it's a great day in Washington County and the region today.
They had the opportunity to go somewhere else, and we lost over 100 jobs here.
Exactly. They currently employ about 250, and we were competing not just for the headquarters project, but for the manufacturing component as well. So to keep it all here.
Commissioner Jones?
Thank you. And I also appreciate everything you do, and we'll be talking about some things, other things you've done later in the CIA report. That's really stellar. This report is one of the reports that the CIA committee discussed and is kind of strategically having us get every year. It's supposed to be in October, but since our meeting was so long last month, we pushed it back to November. but timing-wise, the city gets this report around the same time. So the city pilots will come to us every year at this time, even though there's no project being considered, just to keep it top of mind for all of us. So if anybody has any feedback from Ms. Summers on the content of this report, if you want it reported differently, if you want different metrics or different content, I appreciate the additional piece about the capital investment for that one project. This will be a good time, or following up later, just so she's bringing us what you want to hear. And then we'll have the county pilot projects presented to us in March.
Commissioner England?
The turnout was great today at Crown Labs.
It really was.
Very enthusiastic to see that building used for something else. But that brings me to my question. When NN pulled out, what was done, was anything done to them, or do we have any options there when a company that we agreed to work with on a pilot program just up and leaves?
Yes, those are all written into the lease agreements and the tax agreements, but I'm going to defer to the county attorney on how that played out.
I'm happy to address that. That termination was negotiated actually with the Johnson City IDB, and as I appreciated there, with the IDB's counsel, but really I appreciated that the input was the Johnson City, and I think that's your understanding generally. Their lawyer there was very professionally courteous in sharing the information with the county attorney's office. These provisions in these pilot agreements all have terms that if they don't meet whatever that standard is, then instead of an abatement of this percentage, it would be a different percentage, right? The difference then is addressed in an additional percentage. But what NN agreed to do was, rather than pay an increase in the percentage, which I think would have required them to be here a little longer and hold that building, there was a negotiation for NN to pay 100% of the ad valorem taxes for 2019, less the amount from the date after they left. So I think that the trigger date was October 15th. So just like if you buy a piece of property, you know how there's that section where you pay the taxes from the date you take it. So the separation was for 100% of the taxes through the date of the closing, or the agreement, the assignment to Crown. And so my impression of that was that the IDB's lawyer was trying to keep the building in play so that Crown could then take this assignment and keep the building occupied. So if you'd like any more information about that, I have it, because I did report that to the county mayor, the county assessor's office, and the county trustee, so that those funds, and I can tell you that the amount that they've paid for 2019 was a tax equivalent payment in lieu of taxes for 2019 was $45,095.41. And that has already been tendered to the trustee as the banker for the county.
Commissioner Davenport?
I thank you for the report. I think I've been as vocal as anyone in requesting this information. I thought the information you shared was spot on. It was the right amount of detail, I think. And I think if someone wanted more detail, they could visit you and you could drill down from there. But for this meeting, I thought the information you shared was spot on.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Malone?
My thanks as well, and especially with the former NN building, this now the Crown Labs building. I think that's certainly a win-win, so thanks for your work there. One thing you did reference that I just couldn't help but follow up on is you referenced the audit by the City of Johnson City. What were the notable findings from it, if anything?
There were none. Yeah, and if you'd like it.
So you would characterize it as a clean audit?
I would, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Thank you for all you do every day, Alicia, because I know you're out there every day doing this, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you. I
We know you're on
appreciate
the
that.
front lines of economic development for every one of us. So thank you so much. All right, the next item is the a presentation of the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Mayor?
First, I just want to say that this is a very special award. This GFOA award, the Government Finance Officers Association Award, is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting. And Mitch and his team have achieved that for 2018. And of the 95 counties, only 11 counties received this award. So it's not something they just pass out. So Mitch, you might want to call your team up. Tonight we have Brooke and Lori and June, and these are the people that make it happen. You won't believe the amount of invoices they process in a year, the number of payroll checks they process in a year, and the amount of financial information that they work with.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. 4 years ago, we started the application process for this recognition. There's less than 10 counties within the state of Tennessee that receive the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting from the Governmental Financial Officers Association. Most counties, when they receive one, it is presented oftentimes to an individual. But in this case, this is presented to the Department of Accounts and Budget. They process, I pulled some numbers here real quick. We do a little over 1,000 invoices a month. We write payroll checks in excess of 1,000 a month. And all that totals close to $60 million. So we have Brooke Corey, who's our accounting supervisor, Jill Cunningham, who processes accounts payable, Lori Drain, who processes payroll. We also have Jill Coggins, who's new to our department, who's on vacation this week, who's also doing payroll and payables, and Dusty Daniels, who's we snatched her up from the trustee's office. She couldn't be here tonight either. But I want to present this to Brooke and the rest of the accounting team for the excellent work they did in preparing, pulling together the information that created the comprehensive annual financial report that you'll have hopefully in December. So, Brooke, thank you very much. Do y'all have anything to say? And I do want to make one bittersweet announcement because, man, this thing does have feedback. Lori Drain, who has been here 4 years almost, Lori has accepted a position with Eastman Credit Union in their payroll HR department. So she will be leaving us within 4 weeks. No, she's going to be here another week or two. But we really are going to miss her, and she's worked real hard as we converted our accounting system from the old bridge system. We did that. We lost a long-term payroll person at the same time we were converting. Lori came in. I'm assuming her hair color is natural, but if it were gray, I would understand why. So anyway, but I'm very appreciative of all the work that these ladies do. Thank you very much.
All right, we've got a few more items to press on to tonight. The first item is receive and consider the minutes from the October 28th meeting of the Board of Commissioners that were previously mailed to you. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald to receive the minutes of our last meeting. Discussion or questions? Seeing none? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. The motion passes and the minutes are received. Couple of elections and appointments this evening and a few confirmations. Resolution 191102 is a resolution appointing members to the design committee for the new Jonesboro School. I'll open the floor this time to take nominations for that position. Commissioner McAllister?
Yes, it's time I would like to nominate Commissioner Jody Jones. I think with her background in the healthcare field and just working together. I think we've seen her, how she works with all of us. She brought us together, which shocked me when we had our retreat. And we almost had a full 100% attendance. I think she can come together and bring this under budget and help and work with all three, with the school board and with the city of Jonesboro. So I would like to, at this time, nominate Commissioner Jody Jones.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ford?
No other nomination, I'd like to move nomination cease, we elect her by acclamation.
Second. Okay. Motion and second.
Do you accept
The
it?
nomination ceased and she be elected by acclamation.
Can I say something?
After we take this vote, we'll allow you to speak, Mr. Jones. How's that?
Your mic doesn't work, I'm sorry.
Unless you decline the nomination?
Well, I will accept the nomination, but I do want to acknowledge that I do spend a lot of my additional commitments with the JCDA, probably 4 or 5 hours a month on that committee, and so realistically, for me to serve on this committee, I would need to shuffle that off my plate and work with the mayor on seeing if somebody else could be reappointed to the JCDA. So that's just a consideration I've been having in my mind. So.
All right.
Call for the question.
Question's been called, and Commissioner Jones, we appreciate that, and I know that looks like that your colleagues are really calling you for this job here, and we appreciate you so much for your willingness to serve in many different capacities here on the Washington County Commission. With that being said, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Congratulations, Commissioner Jones. We appreciate you filling that role.
You're welcome.
Actually, we probably need to go to our voting, since that was a resolution, Madam Clerk. If we can go and vote on that as well, I'm sorry. All right, instead of voice voting, let's go to the screen and go ahead and cast your vote for Resolution 191102. All right, Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, and the resolution passes. Next resolution is Resolution 191103, is a resolution reappointing a member to the Emergency Communications District 911 Board. Do you have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Ford, seconded by Commissioner McAllister. This is the mayor's appointment. We are just confirming the appointment. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 11 yes, 1 abstained, 3 absent. The resolution passes. All right, the third resolution is Resolution 191122. Is a resolution electing members to the Agricultural Extension Committee. We have a motion to approve the resolution. Motion made by Commissioner Ford, seconded by Commissioner Light. Discussion?
Call the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Next item is the county mayor's report. Mayor Granby.
Really just a couple things tonight. I will just, on economic development, I was just going to mention that Alicia is kind of amazing. She does a great job. She works, constantly behind the scenes. You see her rarely, but I can tell you, working with her really several times a week, each of you who made comments regarding that were dead on, and she really does a lot of things. This Crown Lab ribbon cutting today was the culmination of about 8 months worth of work. As y'all have pointed out, these folks were being courted away from us. Jeff Bedard, nearly 20 years ago, chose Johnson City and Washington County to make his home for that business. And recently he chose to make Johnson City and Washington County the home for the expansion, the headquarters. And frankly, it couldn't have come at a better time with the situation with NN leaving the market and then being able to come in and fill a void in that building. They are truly regional folks. When you look at where the demographics of their employees, it represents virtually every county in East Tennessee, up into Southwest Virginia. And with this expansion, that will probably grow even more. The LPI folks that Alicia mentioned earlier are really great citizens in the community. Not only did they come in here and get this business going and employ a lot of people, they have this 150-person expansion. They asked for no additional incentives for that. They bought an existing building that needed to be repurposed and moved the business in here from Florida that will hire about 150 people. I think it's probably known to the world today that it is those folks who donated the playground equipment for the New Boones Creek School and stepped up right away to do really good things for us here in Washington County. You'll hear in just a little while about some things coming in the industrial park. We continue to work out there. Again, this is Alicia's work with some grants and things that are now available because of the EBM PAPS folks being located out there, and she'll tell you about that in just a little bit. There's several proposals that have recently been submitted for sites in the industrial park, so that work continues. Now, just to make a quick comment about Aerospace Park at the airport. Work continues. If you've been out there, I think you'll be amazed at the amount of work that got done out there this summer. Of course, we had one of the wettest years on record, but they're doing great work, and 12 months from now, that project will be finished with some infrastructure, some roads, and hopefully some folks out there creating aerospace projects. I mentioned regionalism a minute ago, and I just want to give you a quick update on that. That's something that I've worked on a little bit during the past year, and you hear a lot about. After the combined commission meeting, excuse me, just a little over a year ago, Blue Ribbon Task Force was formed, and from that, 5 action groups were created to evaluate specific areas in economic development across the region where each county has sort of done their own traditionally. And this group, made up of 70 to 80 people, local leaders, studied whether or not these 5 groups would be better or not if they were looked at and work from a regional perspective as opposed from a county by county perspective. The areas that were evaluated was tourism promotion. And tourism promotion, they created 6 groups in their own action group. And I think you'll be amazed at what they've come up with. But, you know, when you think about it, just promoting a region as one from a history perspective, a culture perspective, an outdoor recreation perspective, just makes sense. Every single county in our Northeast Tennessee region has assets, you know, that involve tourism. And if we can get folks to come and spend a week here or 3 or 4 days here as opposed to just coming in and running Tannery Knobs Trail, then it's going to be huge for this area. Entrepreneurial development is another one. You probably heard that from the summit. One of the best opportunities probably to keep some of these young people that are leaving the market. Workforce development clearly is a regional project. Our workforce doesn't recognize county lines. They go everywhere. Whether it's Crown Labs or LPI or whether it's Nuclear Fuels or whether it's Eastman, you know, their folks that work there come from all of our counties in this area, and the workforce is truly regional. Primary job attraction or business recruitment was another area of focus, and I'll just say that one of the proposals that we put in recently, we actually put in our Washington County site and a Bristol site together in one proposal from the region. We recently had the Bobby Rolfe, who was with us today through this ribbon cutting, met with several of us about 6 weeks ago, and we talked about how we were working together as a region, these counties in Northeast Tennessee. And he said, well, you know, you're behind the curve. Just about every other major market in the state's doing that, but you need to do it if you want to be successful. The report out from these groups will be made public soon, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of heads up that, you know, that's what's been going on. Well, I just want to say one more thing on that. You know, why the focus on regionalism? What makes a difference? Why are we even looking at it? Simply because, as most of you already know, our region is flat in terms of growth. There's more people in this region dying than there are being born on a daily basis, and all but Washington County is shrinking in size. In addition to that, we have no growth in our domestic gross product, or GDP, which is the productivity of our area. Our median household income lags behind both the state average and the national average. Ours is somewhere around $44,000 per household. The other end of the spectrum is Franklin, which is 110. So if you can imagine what we would look at like if we had a little bit higher median income. That's why these jobs that we're talking about with Crown Labs and LPI and some of these really great companies are so important, because they're not $8 an hour jobs or $10 an hour jobs. You know, these are jobs that will move the median for our income in Washington County. Very, very important. One more thing. One more thing. Mitch mentioned our audit is complete. The reports are in. You'll get a more detailed report on that soon. In this audit, we had 2 findings as opposed to, I believe it was 6 last year and a dozen or so the year before. You'll hear exactly what they are, but nothing particularly significant to worry about. But that report will be coming out. Probably won't do it in
Should have
December.
December, I don't know if it's commission meeting or not.
Probably bring it to you in January. And lastly, discussion still continues with Johnson City concerning what we're going to do with them around the Boones Creek School. We have a draft in hand that we're working on some details and basically the structure of what that might look like. So stay tuned. Just want you to know that that's up and running, and hopefully that'll be complete here shortly.
Boones Creek School?
I say Boones Creek?
Yeah.
I meant
Jonesboro?
Jonesboro.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure.
Sure. Just been thinking about the
Yeah,
place.
I know, I understand, that's what I thought.
Can't imagine. Looked at Jim Wheeler and said Boones Creek. That's scary. Any questions or anything else come before the group?
I have a question.
Can't imagine.
I know we toured some places with the Election Commission, and you may have a feel for what's going on with early voting sites in the city. So I'm just curious what you know about that.
All right, early voting sites, as I understand it, and I think this is fairly current, Gray site will continue to be an early voting site. Princeton Arch, going back there. And in Jonesboro, still undetermined, would have an RFQ, I guess, or RFP that's going out here shortly for spaces available. And we looked at it, looked at the Ace Hardware site. We believe that'll be available. In order for us to enter into a lease, we've got to, to go through this process and see what else is out there. So that's in the works. Princeton Arts, the lease that we have had with the city for a number of years is terminating at the end of December, and so we'll have an RFP on that building for lease space or lease to purchase or something like that going out here in the next few days. But, it'll be a requirement, obviously, in 2020 that it will be available for the Election Commission.
So that puts our urban center down by one early voting site. So are there plans to identify another place, or do you know if the Election Commission, I know this is not your job, but are you working with them on this at all? Or?
We had 3 sites last time. There'll be 3 sites this time.
Okay.
So Gray, Fire
And
Station.
that's the Jonesboro RFP. Okay, gotcha. Is there anything that we can do as county commissioners to help with this process?
Well, if you know the site, you can encourage the owners to submit on the request. That'd be helpful. It has to be within the town of Jonesboro. It needs to be about 2,500 square feet. I'm sorry.
I just said at the Princeton Arch, the main problem there is getting in and finding a parking place. So, are you going to consider help in any way or moving that?
The church next door, I personally have met with the pastor out there. They've agreed to let folks that are going to vote in that center park in that lot, which is a lot larger and it's a lot easier to maneuver. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily the best solution, but it will help alleviate some of that traffic. We looked at the possibility of making a drive-through from Princeton Arts to the church parking lot. That was really the reason that I met with them the first time. And turns out that that can be accomplished. We just can't do it as a highway department because we can't work on church property. So still possible. What the long term looks like there, we'll just have to wait and see. It's not ideal. I will say this, that the Election Commission evaluated a number of sites in Johnson City, and for one reason or another, none of them seem to work. The auxiliary gym in Freedom Hall is a likely potential in the future. A lot of parking there. It's all one level. But the schools are still using it in 2020. so that the replacement for that space for the schools up there won't be ready until after the elections. Good, thank you very much.
All right, our next item is the county attorney's report. Ms. Wilkins?
Thank you. I have no report to offer, but I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Maybe after the first, about the January, we could probably have an update on our legal cases that are open, so we'll,
Executive session.
executive session, yes, in January, to bring all the commissioners up to date is where we are. So we'll plan for that on the agenda in January. The Director of the Health Department, Director Minnick, is here with us this evening. I think she was here last time, she just didn't get to stay as long as she'd like. Isn't that right, Dr. Minnick? Well, he's gonna keep you up
I
a long
couldn't stay
time.
for the pajama party.
Yes, good deal.
I had a meeting the next morning. Just wanted to give you all an update on where we are as a county health department in our efforts to provide flu vaccinations to both the schools and to the community. We completed our school-located vaccine clinics in both county and city schools by November the 15th. In the county, we offered 337 vaccines. In the city, we offered 672. This is a drop quite a bit in both the county and the city from last year. We think it's mostly because we provided the vaccines later because the vaccine was not necessarily a shortage, but it was taking a long time to reproduce and grow and get into the hands of the health departments. But we don't care where people get it, as long as they get a flu shot, we're happy for them to do that. The State Department of Health announced that on November the 19th, we were having a free flu vaccine day. So that was every county across the state provided free vaccines at some community site. We opened a point of dispensing clinic or a pod at Wesley United Methodist Church. It was very easy for us to walk across the parking lot and set up in their gym and provide free flu vaccines. During that time, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, we vaccinated 131 individuals, which was the second highest in our health department region here in the northeast part of Tennessee. Across the state, for each pod in each county, there were over 7,000 folks vaccinated, so that's pretty good for one-day free flu vaccine offerings. So it's up to the Commissioner of Health whether or not she will allow for more free flu vaccinations or when she will deem those free to the communities. At that point in time, we'll make that announcement via the media and let anybody else know who's not received a vaccine yet that it's a good time for them to get it if they don't want to have to pay for it necessarily. Just an update on the health department. We are in phase 2 of 3 of our renovation project on the first floor, and are beginning the process of receiving architect bids for the second floor renovation part. So it's looking a little different downstairs. Staff are very happy with it. Our patients can't quite see what we've done yet because it's not a patient place yet, but we are on our way of getting that completed. Still pretty much on schedule for that project, a little bit behind due to the holidays and some materials that were a little bit late coming in, but other than that, I don't have anything else. I'll be glad to answer any questions you all may have. I appreciate y'all supporting the health department. And Crown, because my husband works there. He's a chemist there, so we appreciate that too. Okay, thank you.
We appreciate you, Director Minnick. I know you stay busy all the time and get those flu shots out. And all right, next item is our Director of Schools report, Dr. Flannery.
Speaking of health, I have with me this evening Kelly Wagner. She is a registered nurse and she is a supervisor of Washington County Schools Coordinated School Health Program. She it's more than just a clinic these days. It's more than just a school nurse. She has a brief presentation for you. I think you'll be amazed at the scope of what her program does for the children of Washington County. Kelly?
Hello, everyone. My name's Kelly Wagner, and I'm the Coordinated School Health Coordinator for Washington County Schools. And just as Dr. Flannery had mentioned, I'm here to share a little bit about our department and what we do to serve our district. And he is handing out a condensed version of what I'll be going over tonight. I'm trying to be a little bit mindful of your time and give you some information to look over. To start off, we're going to look at our goal. There we go. And our goal is very simple for our district. We want to eliminate the health-related barriers so that the teachers can teach, and that's awfully loud, so the teachers can teach and that the students can learn. And we look at this in a holistic manner. We try to look at the whole child when we address this goal. With our department, we have 21 nurses, and we have several nurses with us tonight. And I'd like to recognize them for just a second. So if they could just stand for me, please. They're the ones who make everything possible. If it wasn't for them, we would not have near the services or near the programs that we do in our county. I'm the one that just gets to tell you about them. So I'm just very grateful for them. Clinic visits. And so we have 13 nurses in our clinics this year, and last year, of course, we had 14. With the consolidation of Boones Creek, we're now down to 13. So with these numbers from last year, these are 14 nurses, saw over 47,000 clinic visits, and they returned to class close to 44,000 with a return to class rate of 92%. And if you look at the previous years, you can see how the numbers keep increasing, and this year is no different. If you will, keeps getting stuck. At the bottom of the screen, here in just a moment, maybe. Here we go. Bottom of the screen, you can see where in 2018, August through October, they saw close to 15,000 clinic visits and return to class close to 14,493% return to class rate. This year, from August to October, we now have 13 nurses for 13 schools that are seeing the clinics, and they saw close to 16,000 visits just in the 3 months we've been in school so far, and returned to class close to 15,000 for a 94% return to class rate. And you all know as well as I do, if the kids aren't in class, they're not learning. So them getting the 94% return to class rate is very significant. And you would think that with those numbers that all they do is to see students in the clinic, but they do so much more. And again, to be mindful of your time, I'm just going to highlight a few. The direct patient care is, of course, the clinic visits, but it's not just Band-Aids and ice packs. They do a lot more. They're dispensing medication that allows kids to be at school. They're counting carbs. They're giving insulin injections. They're they're having to do catheterizations for students. They're doing tube feedings, helping with accidents and incidents. So they're doing all that, plus just seeing the ones that come in for the scraped knee, paper cut, a little bit of everything. They're also having to put all this data into the computer. So all the clinic visits go into the computer, PACER data, screening data. And so all of that goes in. So that's taking up their time. And whenever we're doing the screenings, anytime there's any abnormalities, we're going to refer the students to their primary care physician. And the nurses follow up on that to make certain that they're getting the care that they need. They also are responsible for having a healthy school team at each school. And what they do there is they complete a CDC. It is called the School Health Index, but basically what it is, it's just a needs assessment. And so once they do that needs assessment, they determine maybe what project they can do during school. This year, for example, Ridgeview, they're adding a sensory hallway for their project, for their healthy school team. So we try to do things that's going to benefit the students and the staff as well. They're promoting different health days, the World Milk Day, Walk to School Day. They're doing a lot of education. We now have stock EpiPens in our school, so they're making certain that the EpiPens are in date, that the AED is functional, so heaven forbid if we do need those, that they are in working condition. And these are still not everything that they do. That's just a few. And of course, you all know it takes a village to raise a child. The school system's part of that, and we also recognize that the community is part of that. So we work with our community partners to bring in a lot of services and programs for our students. With Second Harvest Food Bank and some local churches, we were able to distribute close to 8,700 food bags. And each food bag has at least enough food for 2 meals, so that's 17,000 approximately meals that these students and families wouldn't have otherwise if it wasn't for these food bags. ETSU, they work with us, and we're able to distribute 100 Thanksgiving boxes, full Thanksgiving meals, plus a gift certificate to get a turkey for 100 families. Tasty Days, we work with UT Extension. This is one of my favorite programs that we do. It's a nutrition program. They provide vegetables and fruits to us, so each month we're in the school system, and so kindergarten through 4th grade students, they get to sample a fruit or a vegetable, and we alternate each month. And to a surprise to me, when we started it last year, we started out with blueberries, thinking that would be something simple. There were kids who didn't even know what a blueberry was, which was, real shocking to me. We started off with grapes this year. There were kids who didn't even know what a grape was. But we've given them everything from cauliflower to sugar snap peas, and they're all trying it. I'll grant you they get a little eraser or a sticker as an incentive, and you'd be amazed how much of incentive that can be. So that's one of my favorite programs. And we're always looking for volunteers, so should you all ever have some extra time and want to volunteer, please let me know. We'd be happy to have you in the schools with us. Water bottle refill station. We work with Live Well Washington, and they helped us to put one in Sulphur Springs Elementary School last year, and they also provided water bottles for all the students, and we also provided water bottles for the staff because we want them to be examples for the students. And this year we're also adding 16 more water bottle refill stations, so at the end of the school year, when all of them have been placed, every school will have at least one water bottle refill station because we are trying to encourage and increase water intake to decrease the sugary drinks for the kids. With the screenings that we do, we did close to 2,000, and with those screenings, what we're checking is the biometric data. We're doing height, weight, blood pressure, hearing screenings, vision screenings, scoliosis screening, checking for color blindness. We do that on every child, kindergarten, 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and 9th grade, of course with parental consent. And the nurses, they're putting all that data into the computer. EPSD&T visits, we bring in Well Child. And what those visits are is basically, it's an annual physical. And with those, what it does, it helps the parents maybe that can't take off work to take their kids for their yearly physical. And it also kind of bridges a gap for maybe students that wouldn't have that physical otherwise. So we're trying to bring the services in to kind of help the children, also the families. When they recognize any type of abnormality, they refer them to their primary care because they're not their primary care, and they make that information known to the families as well to encourage them to get that follow-up. And our nurses will follow up with them to make certain that the care is being given. Last year, they were able to recognize that 94 students had some issues with their vision and needed glasses. And so what's great about Well Child is the students that day get to pick out what frames they want. Well Child will go and make their glasses and actually bring back to them. And so that's 94 students that's able to see better, and hopefully that will improve their performance in the schools. Dental visits, dental sealants. We work with Washington County Health Department. We bus students to the health department to get the dental visits that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. We do dental sealants through the Northeast Regional Health Department. And if you all have ever had a toothache, you know how important and how beneficial this service is to the students. Flu clinics. You heard Ms. Kristen talk about the vaccines this year. Last year we had 688 students and faculty receive the vaccine. The Washington County Health Department, they come in and do for the students, and CVS comes in for the staff. Our nursing supervisors, they, last year, we like to have first responder teams at each school should there be an emergency, and they trained 140 staff to be a first responder. They teach them the proper way to do CPR, how to work an AED, what to do with the emergency medications. And they also do AED and emergency drills. They do 2 drills in each school a year. Since we've had the stock EpiPens, they're creating scenarios now with the EpiPens to make certain that they know where they're at, to kind of stay prepared should there ever be a situation. Fit for Success, and that's one of my favorite programs that we have. What we do with that program, with the funding from United Way, we're able to fit kids with what they need to be successful. Anything from school supplies to new shoes to new clothes. And we buy clothes and shoes for them just like we would our own children. Last year we were able to give new shoes or clothes to 871 students. And then we also do with Shoe Carnival as well. Each year we bus 10 to 15 students from each school to Shoe Carnival, and then we're there to help them go around. They get to pick out any shoe they want to at Christmas. And Shoe Carnival's helping us with funding this year also. Elks Clubs helps us with funding, which I failed to put that up there, but I want to make certain they get credit for that. And we're also having some agencies collect some socks for us as well. And so that's always a great day, and you're all welcome to come with us and help with the kids with that day as well. They're also doing some training with non-medical person on giving medication if need be. With all the services and programs that we brought in last year, we brought in close to $400 worth of in-kind funding with those programs. And these still aren't all the programs that we do. These are just the majority of what we do. They're doing education. We're having our float nurse. She's going into the schools. She's doing hand washing classes. We're doing hygiene classes. We're talking to them about tobacco products, vaping. We're encouraging physical activity with their morning mile. And we're working with a host of students at both high schools to encourage. Each year they get to pick a project. Last year they picked positive body image, and they also picked distracted driving. And so we're also doing education as much as we can in the schools as well. This year, telemedicine, that's the big thing we've worked on this year. We've been working on it for a couple of years, and we finally implemented it in our school system. And if you're not familiar with telemedicine, it's basically a virtual doctor's visit. It's kind of like Skype. We get to see them, they get to see us. We have equipment in our schools to where there's a stethoscope, there's otoscope attached to the computer, and so the nurse practitioner on the other end can see in the ear, can see in the mouth. We can swab for strep, we can swab for flu. So that's going to help the parents if they, rather than just coming and picking up their child and taking them to the doctor and sitting there for several hours, then going and get their prescription and then going home, having that visit. If they fit the right, parameters, we have guidelines that we have to follow. If they fit in those guidelines, we can do that, of course, with parental consent. And then all the parent has to do is just pick their child up, pick the medicine up, and just go home and let them rest. And so that helps the families, but it also helps to give medical care to maybe children that wouldn't get medical care. We've had kids come to school, wouldn't take their coat off, and come to find out they have a broken arm because their parents told them, don't take your coat off. And so there's, as disheartening as it is, there's a lot of kids who don't get the medical care that they need, and this service is to help bridge that gap to make certain they get the services. A Storybook Trail, we added that to Ridgeview this year with the thanks of Live Well Washington. They provided through a grant the funding for that. And what the Storybook Trail is, it is a combination of working on literacy skills and also physical activity. At Ridgeview, we're going to put one at Grandview too. And the reason we chose those two schools is because, one, they're on both sides of the county, but there's always ball games there every weekend. So there's tons of families, tons of kids there all the time. And around the track, what we did is we put 10 poster shelters around the track, and in each poster shelter is pages to a book. So as they're walking the track, they can read a book. So that encourages them to do the physical activity. And it's also something they can do with their families. It just encourages reading. We were doing alternative breakfast this year at Lamar. So when they're doing the morning mile, walking in the morning, rather than having to choose, do I go get my breakfast, do I get to walk? You can do both, and we have it right there with them. And we've added $2,000 worth of physical education equipment through a grant to Lamar this year. And we've already talked about the water bottle refill stations, and we're also looking at doing a pilot program for asthma screening in the spring for students. Now, with all these, with the outcomes, is decreased absenteeism, and again, if the students are in school, that's going to increase their performance. It also, with our nurses being in the schools, allows medically fragile students to attend school, and the ones with chronic conditions also to be at school on a regular basis. And we also positively affect the budget. The most important outcome that we want to achieve, obviously, is happy, healthy children. And if they're not feeling good, we want to make certain that they feel loved and they feel taken care of. And so that's our main goal, our main outcome that we want to achieve. And we're just very grateful that we have the opportunity to serve in Washington County. So can I answer any questions for you? All right. Thank you.
Our attendance through the first 60 days of school was north of 94%, and in some of our schools it's north of 96%. We couldn't do that without those ladies back there. They're keeping those kids healthy and in school, so thank you. Some time ago, my colleague in Johnson City, Dr. Steve Barnett, did a talk to you about the state of their physical plant, and at the request of one of you, I have created a catalog of Washington County schools, and it's in color. And,
A lot of pictures.
lots of pictures and not a whole lot of writing, and I won't go through it because I just won't go through it all the time. Some of you have kids. I hope you'll take that with you, and I hope that you'll send me any questions you might have concerning that, and other than that, I hope you folks have a very happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Flannery. I know what a great job those nurses do. They just wonder now how you ever made it in school without a nurse, because that's truly what it is today. All right, our first report of committee reports, Commissioner Carriger, is the Commercial, Industrial, and Agricultural Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our minutes are on page 27. We've got a couple resolutions to act on later on tonight. But the first item I want us to take a look at, and Commissioner Jones is working on our annual retreat. It looks like it's going to be in January. And Commissioner, you got an update for us?
We went ahead and got dates from everybody, and looked like most people could do Saturday, January 25th from 9 to 12. Our group discussed a format for that. We're going to just do a breakfast, but no lunch. So it'll be done at 12. We will use the time to break up into groups, and we'll have 3 groups. One group will each group will work on one of our strategic objectives. So be thinking about which of the 3 strategic objectives sounds interesting. Hopefully come up with an action plan. Pat Hardy and Rick Hall are good for that date to facilitate with us. I will send out a map with directions, and it doesn't matter how many times you go to Valley Brook, you still need a map and directions, so please print those out or keep them handy. Because I did work with ETSU, and they'll give us that space for free again. So the only expense we'll have will be breakfast, and I think a few of us pulled that together last year. So if we have any donut bringing volunteers, happy to hear about it. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions or concerns about the date. We heard from most everyone. Heard from about 70% of folks. We'll do it 9 to 12, and I'll get that sent out here soon so everybody can have a reminder in their email separate from tonight so that you can be sure and block your calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Action items, we've got 2 resolutions, and I've asked Alicia to stick around with us tonight in case anybody's got any questions or needs an explanation. but the first resolution is number 191117, resolution authorizing Washington County, Tennessee to apply for Select Tennessee Site Development Grant, Washington County Industrial Park Expansion Project, and it's on page 59. Do we have, Alicia, anything you want to say before we consider this?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody that when we did the two pad-ready sites and the access road out in the industrial park, one of our partners was TNECD through the Select Tennessee Site Development Grant Program. And this resolution is for some due diligence work out there. It's a grant from the state for up to $100,000. And it's kind of the first step we need to take before we apply for those larger funds once we determine what our next moves are out there in the industrial park. So it's the same program.
Thank you, Alicia. Mr. Chairman, this comes to the commission with a recommendation for approval from the CIA committee.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Wheeler to approve the resolution. Discussion? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Commissioner Carriger?
Our next resolution from the CIA committee is resolution number 191120, resolution authorizing application for the Tennessee Department of Transportation Site Industrial Access Program. Alicia, any comments you wish to make before we vote on this?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So you all might remember that when we were working.
Alicia, if you would, step on up here to the podium. I get fussed at every once in a while because I got to put a name with a face on camera, so thank you.
Okay, so you all might remember that when we were working with EBM PAPS, when we were working through the incentives and landing that project, that I mentioned to you all that these types of projects open the door for other opportunities. So this second resolution for the TDOT State Industrial Access Program is one of those opportunities. So because we landed EBM PAPS, that made us eligible to apply for this program. We had TDOT come out early in September, and they took a look at some traffic issues, the potential for a roadway, and basically this resolution just says that the county is in support of the project. Once they did their analyzation or they analyzed the project, they came back and asked us to submit a formal application, and the resolution is required with that application. What they're looking at doing is extending the roadway from, you might remember we put a new access road in. It ends in a cul-de-sac. Last January, or a year ago, it'll be 2 years ago in January, the county commission purchased an additional 37-acre site that backs up to Blaylock Road. And so the TDOT came out and wants us to submit this application that they will run, if it's approved, the roadway from the cul-de-sac out to within about 100 or 200 feet of Blaylock Road. So it's a roadway extension. And through the SIA program, if it's approved, it's no cost to the county.
Any further questions? And Mr. Chairman, this comes with the recommendation for approval from the CIA.
Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Lott to approve the resolution. Discussion? Questions? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else, Commissioner Carriger?
No, sir, that ends it.
Thank you. All right, our next item is the Employee Compensation and Benefits Committee. Commissioner McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll find our report on page 63. Just some of the things you can see where we discussed. One of the issues we'll be continuing to look at over our next few meetings is we've been asked to review the county's current policy on the accumulation of sick time, vacation time, and holiday pay. We'll be working that over the next, like I said, our next few meetings, when we'll report back to you about that, how we get that. You'll also see on page 87 is a resolution about the county's employees benefits advisor, Cheryl Morgan's annual consulting fee. And this is really a budget neutral resolution. What we used to do, our former consultant, we did not pay them directly. Blue Cross Blue Shield paid them. And that was around $70,000. Well, now, we're paying Cheryl Morgan $35,000. We're paying them directly. So to balance the budget, we just had to go, as you can read within this resolution, it's basically going back and just the comptroller asked us to move that money, that $35,000 from that line into a different line item. And we hope that this will help reduce some of our costs too. But we'd like to keep it right at this current cost right now. So we bring this resolution 1911-12 in form of a motion to you from the Employee Compensation Committee.
Motion made by Commissioner McAllister, seconded by Commissioner Lott to approve the resolution. Discussion, questions?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions of me.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item is the Rules Committee. Commissioner Tester is out this evening. Commissioner Wheeler, are you the
Yes, sir.
next man in line, I think?
You see our minutes on page 155 of your packet. We have one resolution found at page 160 of your packet, resolution number 191104, resolution ratifying the agreement. Excuse me, I'm on the public safety.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Wheeler, I missed public safety. I'm going to have to, well, you're on public safety anyway, so let's just go ahead and do public safety, and you can just continue on.
Yes, sir. 191104 is a resolution ratifying the agreement between East Tennessee State University and Washington County, Tennessee for forensic pathology services. This comes in a form of a motion from the committee.
All right. We kind of got off track. All right, who was the second on that one? Commissioner Fitzgerald? All right. Is there any discussions or questions?
I just need to recuse myself.
All right. Are you going to use your abstain button, Commissioner Jones? I had to use it earlier. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, we have Madam Clerk, if you'll switch. Hold on just a minute, Cheryl. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Looks like you've already done that, and I am the one that needs to vote. All right, 10 yes, 1 no, 3 absent. The resolution passes. All right, let's back up to health, education, and welfare, Commissioner Wheeler. I missed that as well. I don't know how I ended up. I thought I was at the bottom of the other page. Sounds like you're going to have to come up here and take over here in just a minute. All right. Health, Education, and Welfare Commissioner Edens is not here this evening, so that would be Commissioner Williams, would be our Vice Chairman.
I'm filling in for someone that's enjoying Disney World, which I wish I was. We had several items. Number one, Dr. Flannery gave an update on school projects, as far as the cooling and roof system of Jonesboro Elementary. And that is 80% and 40% complete. And then Dr. Barnett gave us a report on the needs of the Johnson City Schools, which we discussed. And then if you all will turn to page 98 for the environmental court cleanups. I think that's where the resolution is. I don't see the resolution. I'm lost.
Page 150, I think, is the first resolution, Commissioner. That's resolution 1911-18.
Yes, this is for, where did he say? All right, this is resolution 1911-18 to amend the fiscal year budget. And it's the reference to the library, and it comes to us in the form of an motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Williams to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Ford. Discussion? Question? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. All right, on to the next one, Commissioner Williams.
Well, now there's one on Bear Lane.
That's resolution 1911-21.
All right, this is for, Dr. Jones is going to give us an update on this, on the nonprofit support specialist.
Okay, so just a little history on this one. You all may recall that over the years, we have debated and discussed decreasing the amount we're spending on nonprofits and even eliminating any spending on nonprofits. In fact, the city eliminated spending on nonprofits in the last couple of years. So this is something we've been discussing. Last spring, this topic came up just as we were getting close to the budget. And we struggled, the Hugh Committee really struggled to tell the nonprofits that we have historically funded no, 2 months before their fiscal year was about to start. So we said yes, and we again funded several nonprofits in small amounts of $5,000 to $12,000 each for a total of around $60,000 last spring. So $60,000 is what we spent last spring, which is down from previous years, but not, it's not zero, right? So the question again was raised, like, okay, we again funded this amount. Do we continue to fund nonprofits? And in discussing and debating that, we had feedback from nonprofits, of course, the several that we are currently funding, very invested in seeing that funding continue. Many of them do, as you know, very important work in our community. And it was a very challenging discussion. So we had not gotten to the bottom of that. My only concern that I raised, and you all heard me raise this in a commission meeting last July, was that we make a decision so that we can tell these nonprofits if we're not going to fund them, like now. So they have half a year to prepare for their next fiscal year. And just so you know, we did draft a letter this last month or so that should, if it hasn't already gone out, should go out soon, letting them know that we're considering some alternate scenarios. So they're on, it's been brought to their awareness, hopefully in form of a letter from us. I want to credit Mr. Griffin. He came to me a few months ago and had this idea that maybe we could use some of those funds to hire a grant writer. And a grant writer could sort of like, teach people to fish instead of just giving handouts. We could have someone actually empower nonprofits in our county to learn to write grants by facilitating their writing of grants or even writing grants for them in some cases. I thought this was a great idea. I write grants myself and am familiar with that process and know that it is feasible to write grants for others and can be done and really for the same amount of money or less, we could, I'm guessing, bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars to nonprofits in the county and sort of a, what do they call it, a multiplier, whatever that term is. So Mr. Griffin and I are batting around some ideas with the Jonesboro Community Chest, and I really appreciate Ms. Spears coming forward with the idea that maybe United Way could be a host. There's certainly some advantages to that. United Way has some infrastructure that, would allow us to offload, the indirect costs of running a program like that. I think we all envision, even if United Way were to be the host for such a program, there would be quite a bit of county and other oversight. In the meantime, I talked about the project with Commissioner Hunter. I appreciate him being here tonight and waiting for this agenda item. He and I have worked to elevate this concept just because we feel like, number one, it's a great opportunity to work with the city a little bit, maybe split the cost of this grant writer, city, county. But also, both of us, again, feel that there's a real opportunity here for some funds to come into the county, much more than anything either of the two potential partners have ever invested in the past, that would really do good things for the citizens of Johnson City. At this point in time, the city has not vetted this potential idea, although I think they're interested in hearing about it. They opted to wait until, and I think we all thought it made sense for them to wait until our body agreed that it was worth investigating. And so then the resolution in front of you is only asking for kind of support to investigate this. It's not a resolution asking you to support that we go forward with it. There are certainly quite a few aspects that need to be discussed. Right now, we're considering $40,000 from the county and $40,000 from the city, so it would be a decrease in the amount we spent last year. Those two amounts combined, we feel, would allow us to hire an experienced grant writer. It would be available to all the nonprofits in the county. And we proposed a 3-year pilot with measurable targets that would be reported back to us annually. I expect in the first year or two of the project, those targets will just be the numbers of grants written and perhaps the number of dollars attained. By the end of second, third year, we should be starting to hear about the impacts of the projects that were funded, as well as impacts on helping nonprofits in the area write their own grants, for example. So we're in an exploratory phase, and much of this can be revised. It's still in the discussion phase, and in fact, that's what we should be doing now, is discussing it. And then with your support for this resolution, we can go forward and hear what the city might think. That's all I have.
Commissioner Carter?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my first reaction is I have a hard time spending taxpayers' money on this. And I know I sound like the Grinch at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I guess the way I look at this, if this is such a good idea, it looks to me like United Way ought to fund it, not the taxpayers. And just my impression.
All right. Commissioner McAllister?
Yeah, just my thoughts on this. I've sat on the HEW committee, and I've had that it's a very difficult time to see who do we provide that money to. If we can continue to fund these nonprofits, when I was there it was $75,000. It's very difficult because how do we pick and choose who's the best? I know we all sit on different boards throughout this, but I think this is a very good idea to look at. Again, it's just to explore and to see what we can do. If we can continue to support with $75,000, I think this is a much better investment than what we've done in the past. It looks at a number of things. I know former Commissioner Krieger probably sent all y'all a letter, and he had some good questions. I think there were excellent questions to ask. But I think if we support this tonight, those are the questions we can ask and go forward. And if we can't answer those questions, then we don't support it. But I think we need to look forward, and I support this to at least go forward and see what we can do with this.
Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, I remember when I first got on the commission, this was one of the hang-ups I had. It was like we were picking and choosing winners and losers. And, all of our nonprofits are good. So, I really, this is a much better plan. Now, is it the right plan? I'm not sure. But one question I have, if we would decide to invest and go this route, and we're not voting on that now, we're just voting to investigate. But if we went, is 3 years enough to see if it's going to work or not? Or is 4 years the right? I don't want to, I would not be interested in investing and then we're 1 year short of seeing if this would be the right plan or not. But I guess that's also investigated if we move forward, right? As far as what.
That's a great question. Yeah, I just wrote that down. And just to be clear, Mr. Krieger did have a number of great questions. I spoke with him personally and kind of like walked out a few of the answers. And it's great to do that because you do realize like, oh yeah, like this is going to be a little bit of work. If we do choose to go forward with this, we're going to have to really articulate how we provide oversight for it and make sure it's fair and make sure it's working the way we intended, that it's a good use of taxpayer dollars. We're really seeing dividends on, that small investment. The other option is to discontinue funding to nonprofits, and then we don't have any work, right? It's easy. We don't have to commit time and energy to doing all that extra stuff.
Commissioner Wheeler?
Yeah, we should.
I share Commissioner Carragher's concern, but I do see this as a path to do something about a problem that we've had ongoing as far as trying to develop a way for the entire commission to agree that we change the way we're handling nonprofits. And I've said several times in budget meetings, it's hard to tell department heads and employees that we can't, and citizens, that we can't do things that I think are much more fundamental to our role as county government because of that. But I think this is an excellent way to get this started. What I would ask that we might consider looking at while we're investigating this is talking to United Way about them looking at this over the next 3 years or whatever period we look at, and then anticipating that they may take this over after that. I can support this as a good way to get this started, a good way to change the way we're doing things, and then potentially for United Way to look at it on down the road as a project they would take over, so that this wouldn't be an ongoing, because otherwise we're just taking the dollars that we can't use for county functions now and moving them to something else and not using them for, real true county duties and responsibilities. So I can support it at this point for that reason, and I think, but I do share those concerns, Commissioner.
That's a great point. And sometimes you can write the grant writer into the grant so that the grants you get are paying for the grant writer too. So there's a few options there that we can look at. It's very helpful.
Commissioner Williams?
I just suggested that we have a portion of our January 25th workshop retreat to just really seriously discuss it. And I also think if the United Way is already contributing to some of these nonprofits, which I'm sure they are, do they also need our money, or would it be better for them to bump up what they give? So I think discussion in January is a time to see whether we really do want to continue to participate as a county.
Commissioner Malone?
Well, just thank you for those that have worked on this initiative, and I like the idea in the concept of a transition, and I think that's what Commissioner Wheeler was maybe referencing. Not that this would be something that the county would take on in perpetuity, but that it would serve as a transition such, for 3, 4, or 5 years, and that eventually this grant writer is earning their keep and then some. In other words, they're generating adequate funds from the grants received that more than offset the cost of their compensation, and so then it's not an expense to the county or the city. And plans are made to be changed, but as I recall, what budget had kind of planned, and again, plans are made to be changed, and it could change with the next budget year, but that we were going to phase those out over time, trying to do so over the next 3 to 4 years. So that plan can change, it can be accelerated. I would hope it's not slowed down, but I like the idea.
Commissioner Carter?
Remind the commission that the United Way doesn't fund every nonprofit in the county. Are we going to become the grant writing underwriter for those great causes that don't get money from the United Way? So I guess what I'm saying is this, and I'm sure we will, let's think this thing through all the way.
That's a great point, and we did talk about that with Ms. Fears, and this person would be committed to serving all nonprofits, not just the ones that have received money from United Way. But I do want to say, and I've really appreciated the United Way, kind of providing us with a model for how would this work if we funneled the money through United Way. We should stay open to, other ideas. This hasn't been vetted. You're the first group to really get the chance to vet it. If folks have ideas about this, these are all great ideas. So more ideas, the better at this point.
Commissioner Ford?
I know nobody in this room is going to believe this, but I agree with Commissioner Carey. We have so many things in this county right now we need to spend money on. We don't have money to spend on. We just keep giving us the ideas to spend more and more money. And the taxpayers, I think you deserve better than what we're giving here lately. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting here, that this is courageous leadership in my opinion, because we have looked over the last 4 to 6 years, we're down, you said $60,000. 4 to 6 years ago, it was what?
It was at least 75 when I was there.
I believe it was more than 75. And to look at these, like I said, everyone is deserving. So that is courageous leadership to be able to do this, look at this, and try to find a way to our nonprofits be successful without being county funded or taxpayer funded.
Other questions?
Was a question, I didn't, question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Oh, we don't have a motion. I thought,
I will second the motion relative to the resolution.
so we have a motion by Commissioner Jones and a second by Commissioner Malone. Question has been now called again. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 8 yes, 4 no, 3 absent. The resolution passes. All right. Commissioner, is there anything else for the health education report?
The only thing is we did have a discussion or a presentation from Mr. Myers It's 40 pages. It's in the agenda. If you want to look at it, you can. That's it.
Did you have a motion, Commissioner Davenport?
I was just seeing if we could get, some kind of summary.
Well, see, I disagreed with him, so I'm not a person.
All right. All right, so any questions or, for Commissioner Williams? If not, we'll move on to the next report. That would be the Rules Committee. Commissioner Wheeler, we're back to you again.
And the minutes from the Rules Committee are found on page 168. We have the resolutions to see. That concludes our report.
That was a fine report. All right, the Washington County Library Board of Trustees, Mayor Grandy, is there anything that you want to discuss about the Library Board of Trustees, or the minutes are in your packet on page 177? The next item is the Budget Committee report. Commissioner Wheeler?
We have several matters for you this evening. The first, our minutes are on page 194 of your packet. We have a number of resolutions, the first of which is Resolution 19-1105, resolution amending fiscal year budget 2019-2020 regarding remaining available grant funds to be spent from the 2017 Homeland Security Grant. That comes by way of a motion from the committee.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Malone to approve the resolution. Discussion?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, the resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Our next resolution is Resolution 19-1108, resolution amending fiscal year budget 2019-2020 regarding circuit court moving money to cover the cost of shredding, found on page 222 of your packet.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Carriger to approve the resolution. Discussion?
Question?
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Our next resolution is found at page 225 of your packet, resolution number 19-1109, resolution amending fiscal year budget 2019-2020 regarding the Health Department, CDC 1815 grant funds for fiscal year 20. That comes by way of a motion from the committee.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald to approve the resolution. Discussion?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Next resolution is found at page 229 of your packet, resolution number 19-1110, resolution amending fiscal year budget 2019-2020 regarding property assessor installed GPS tracking on 5 reappraisal department vehicles for employee safety purposes. This comes to you as a motion from the committee.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Light to approve the resolution. Discussion?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Our next resolution is found on page 232 of your packet, resolution number 19-1113, resolution amending fiscal year budget 2019-2020 regarding reclassifying general sessions judges hazardous waste cleanup and county attorney's contracted legal services account to codes compliance legal services. This comes by way of a motion from the committee.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Malone to approve the resolution. Discussion?
Explain that to me a little bit.
Call for question.
I got a question. I was asking, explain that to me a little bit. What's the function?
We're moving money from a couple of different locations to cover codes compliance, the legal services that are provided for codes compliance under.
Okay, I got it.
All right. All right, any further questions? Who called the question? Commissioner Carriger called the question. Madam Clerk, switch us to the voting screen, please. And we'll go ahead and cast our vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Commissioner Wheeler?
Our final resolution is found on page 235 of your packet, resolution number 191119, a resolution amending fiscal year budget 2019-2020 regarding Washington County EMS Capital Projects Fund. This comes by way of a motion from the committee.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Carriger to approve the resolution. Discussion? Question?
We'll have, that money's gonna be available through the capital project plan. Those money be available through that?
Yes.
Right.
So, are you calling for the question now, Commissioner Ford?
Yeah.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, resolution passes. Anything else, Commissioner Wheeler?
That's all of our report. Thank you.
All right. Going on to our notice, that's Resolution 191107, resolution approving the election of notaries public for appointment or reappointment for Washington County, Tennessee. Motion made by Commissioner Ford, seconded by Commissioner Light to approve the resolution. Discussion or questions?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. If you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, and the resolution passes. The next resolution is a resolution 191106, the resolution scheduling the regular meeting dates and times for the Board of County Commissioners. However, we do have a slight bit of change there on May the 18th. We need to change that to May the 18th. Unless you want to be here on Sunday. So that was just a typographical error. That is correct, right? Allison, May the 18th. Yes. So if you will change that on your resolution, I don't think it won't require us to amend it, but just please make a note of that.
From May 6th to 18th.
There's a budget.
Commissioner Williams?
Is there a way that the November regular county commission meeting could not be on Thanksgiving week? Could we have it the 16th? I know that pushes putting a packet together, but this is such a great week to get out of town. Or cook.
Well, if you will notice, that's one of the problems with December, because we try to stay out of Christmas week. It's either Christmas week or Thanksgiving week is really, I hate to say that way, but it's as long as it is short, I guess. I don't. Yeah, give me one. We have a motion motion made by Commissioner Ford to approve the resolution. We have a second? So at least we can discuss it. Seconded by Commissioner McAllister. I don't know, whatever the commission's thought, I guess, on Thanksgiving week. It just brings you'll have a month like December, is what I'm saying. it'll be another short month and a short month. You'll have a limited agenda. Commissioner McAllister?
My only comments are, I'm sure
Thank you.
what we're saying is, if you've been in the rules, we've had discussion before about how difficult it is to get this packet together, and I'm afraid we put more pressure on our people to get it done, and so I would like to keep it the same. I know some people, I appreciate you, Commissioner Williams, wanting to have Thanksgiving and prepare food for us and everything, but I understand these people have a difficult time getting this all together, and I think we can work it out, keep it the same.
Any further discussion or consideration? Call for the question. Question's been called. Madam Clerk, switches to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and mark it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 12 yes, 3 absent, the resolution passes. The cutoff date and time for next month's county commission agenda is Thursday, December the 5th. Tuesday, December the 5th.
I got started.
And the packet says noon, is that correct?
Noon, yes. My packet says noon.
So committee meetings in the afternoon will not have time to get there. And I mean, that's fine.
It should be Thursday. It'll have to be Thursday. Yeah, it's Thursday, it's not Tuesday. Yeah. Me and Tony up here is getting ready to wrestle with something.
So if the Public Safety Committee passes something, it won't be on the December agenda?
We'll get it, Commissioner Wheeler. You just send it to us. We'll get it. That's correct. Committee meetings will be on Wednesday. Yeah, they'll meet on the Wednesday because there again, we're going back to that short month. So there you go, Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes, sir.
You've got a whole 30 minutes. Also, in December, I'm going to try to talk Commissioner Ed Ford into having a little party downstairs after our December meeting. What we've done in the past is everyone's brought a dish to share. I cannot get that done without Commissioner Ford. So if everybody would like to bring a dish to share, not a turkey or anything like that, but just some finger foods, and we have a room downstairs that we'll have a bit of Christmas after our commission meeting.
Just
Commissioner
pass
Jones?
along, you cannot put a knife in the dish. I just learned that recently.
Really?
If you try to bring a knife in.
Well, that's why we're going to let Commissioner Ford, he'll bring the knife. So, we're going to follow his lead. We haven't done this in a year or so, have we, Commissioner Ford? And I've kind of sprung it on him, but anyway, it's turned out great in years past. And, but it's just good food and a good time for a few minutes. So, and I'm sure I'll be calling you, asking you what kind of drink to bring or something like that. Yeah, that's it. If you want your cake cut, Commissioner Jones, you know who to see now. All right, is anything else for us to discuss or talk about, or, good. Motion to adjourn, Commissioner Lott. Motion made by Commissioner Lott, seconded by Commissioner Ford. To adjourn, all in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign.
I handed out the committee meeting dates and budget committee dates for next year. Thank you. Should have a copy of that and put it on the website.
Thank you, Sherry, for all your hard work in getting us straight.